Last week, we explored patterns with powers of 10 to investigate negative exponents. This week, we are going to extend our learning by looking at bases other than 10. In this activity, we will be exploring powers of 2. As you move to the left in the table, each number is being multiplied by 2. I'll start with the value furthest to the right in the table, 1/2, and repeatedly multiply by 2 as I move to the left. 1/2 times 2 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 times 2 is 16. So we see in the table that as we move from right to left, we are repeatedly multiplying by 2. But what is the multiplier as you move toward the right? In last week's lesson, we learned that the opposite of multiplying by 10 was dividing by 10, which is the same result as multiplying by 1/10. We can apply that same concept here. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2, or multiplying by 1/2. So now as I move to the right in the table, I'm going to multiply by 1/2. 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. 1/2 of 1/4 is 1/8. And 1/2 of 1/8 is 1/16. Now let's look at the exponent form of these numbers. I noticed that 16 is written as 2 to the 4th power in the table. For the number 8, I could also write that as a power of 2. 2 to the 3rd power is 8. As I continue to the right, 2 squared is 4. And a single 2 is written as 2 to the 1st power. Now I'm seeing a pattern in the exponents as I move to the right in the table. I notice that the exponents are decreasing by 1. If I continue that pattern, then 1 would be represented as 2 to the 0 power. Again, as I move to the right, I would decrease my exponent by 1, again giving me 2 to the negative 1 power. Just like last week, I'm noticing that fractions are being represented in exponent form as negative exponents. Continuing my pattern, 1/4 is written as 2 to the negative 2nd power. 1/8 is to the negative 3rd power, and 1/16 is 2 to the negative 4th power. It is important to note that there are no negative values in this example. The negative exponent does not mean that the value is negative, but rather that the value is a fraction. So 2 to the 4th power is 16, whereas 2 to the negative 4th power is not negative 16, it is 1/16.